We are live in.
Yeah, half a minute. And
Sir, you just give us this indication so that I can tell Anil.
Yeah, but now the screen is being shared or not shared? Stop sharing. I will stop sharing. Okay, fine.
Sir, we are live now.
Yes. Yeah.
You can start.
Anil, am I seen? Yeah. Good morning, all. Myself, Dr. Inamdar, Professor and Head of Physiology Department, on behalf of MGMIHS Bioethics Unit, I welcome you all for this webinar. We are celebrating the World Bioethics Day. Today is 19th October 2020. So we welcome dignitaries, authorities of MGMIHS and the constituent units of both the campuses, Navi Mumbai and Aurangabad, and of all the streams, that is medicine, nursing, physiotherapy, prosthetic and orthotic, allied health sciences, that is School of Biomedical Sciences. So all of the units are here, all the faculty is here, all the participants are there, especially the enthusiastic student participants are here. Today is 19th October and this is celebrated as a World Bioethics Day. And the theme for today is beneficence and harm. That is, you should transmit the benefits to the patient and you should not do any kind of a harm to the patient. That is the theme. When we look at ethics, what is ethics? I mean, ethics is a term that is related to philosophy and to some do's and don'ts. And we used to learn from our parents, from our teachers, from the environment as to what is ethics, what is good, what is bad. So there are three things. One is a legal, other is ethical, and third is a moral. So legal pertains to what is society accepting good and bad, and ethical is what the profession accepts, and the moral is to the self, individual values. Now, how we learned? We learned from the parents, grandparents, and in our Indian culture, in civilization, in the fabric, there is ethic. And we at MGMIHS, with blessings of Gandhiji, I mean, we have all the ethics in our curriculum, in our day-to-day life of integrity, honesty, virtuousness, righteousness. And as Gandhiji said, the poorest of the poor, we have to go and wipe the tears. So ethic is ingrained. Still, ethic was not there in the curriculum. Actually, curriculum is what is being learned by the students. So there are different types of curriculum. One is a taught curriculum, one is a learned curriculum, and one is a hidden curriculum. So we used to have these values through a hidden curriculum, through the environment. But now, Medical Council of India, with the competency-based medical education in 2019, has brought in the center stage ATCOM module, Attitude, Ethics and Communication, and it is being structured module which is being taught to the students in this way because we want the health professional to be ethical and to imbibe all these principles. So with this, we move on to what is today's program. We have expert panel today, and they are going to deliberate on the various issues related to bioethics and related to the theme. So let us look at what the program for today is. So I'm sharing screen. This is a webinar on this World Bioethics Day, and the program here is we will be starting with our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Shashank Dalvi sir's opening remarks. Dalvi sir is also head of Bioethics Unit, and he has started a number of initiatives in the university in the field of education, research, NAC, and other aspects. and he will guide us with his opening remarks. That is how we will start with. Following which, we will request Dr. Gauri Bapat. Gauri Bapat is a nodal officer from Aurangabad. She is associate professor of OBGY, and she will be speaking on Introduction to World Bioethics Day 2020 and the theme. So she will dwell upon the aspects related to it. We are very fortunate to have Dr. Kalidas Chavan. Dr. K.D. Chavan is a registrar of MUHS Nashik. I remember recently his book was released, Beyond Medicine. So it was a great function. So he is an expert who will be telling us about the ethical and legal aspects of consent in medical profession. So consent is an important part which he will explain in details. Following which, Dr. Mrunal Pimparkar, who is a nodal officer at Navi Mumbai, and she is a secretary of Bioethics Unit. She has taken a lot of pains to organize this program. She will be speaking on principles of bioethics and ethical dilemmas in healthcare. And following which, we will receive some questions. So students are requested to put the questions in the chat box, right? And you can also note down to which speaker you want to address the question. So at the end, we'll take a few questions and we'll summarize, and that is how the program will end by 12:30 or so. So we have a great feast now. We are going to celebrate World Bioethics Day, and here are the experts. And to set the ball rolling, I mean, who else than our Honorable Vice Chancellor, who is steering all these activities, very enthusiastic. So may I request Dr. Shashank Dalvi sir to kindly guide us with his opening remarks. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ravi Ananda. Good morning to all the panelists, all the viewers, all the students, all the faculty. As this webinar is organized by Bioethics Unit of MGM Institute of Health Sciences, and our unit is also recognized by UNESCO. So on behalf of unit as well as MGMIHS, I give best wishes on the occasion of this World Bioethics Day. Dr. Kalidas Chavan, Registrar of Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, Nashik. Dr. Ravi Ananda, Professor and Head, Department of Physiology, MGM Medical College, Navi Mumbai. Dr. Mrunal Pimparkar, Professor of Community Medicine, now the Bioethics Unit Coordinator for Mumbai campus, as well as she is heading number of activities of Medical Education Unit. Dr. Gauri Bapat, Associate Professor of OBGY, who is leading the activities of the Bioethics Unit. Now, what is this World Bioethics Day? How UNESCO and the relation of this World Bioethics Day with each other? What is exactly this activity? Initially, Dr. Inamdar sir have briefed you regarding the ethical issues. Later on, you are going to learn more and more. As such, UNESCO, everybody have heard this name. But if we ask the long form of UNESCO, I am sure not more than 10% will be able to tell the long form of UNESCO. It is United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And this is a specific agency of United Nations. And this is aimed at promoting world peace and security through international cooperation in education, science and culture. The headquarters of this UNESCO is at Paris, France. The UNESCO, previously when we were hearing, mostly we come across this word, the UNESCO and declaration of the by UNESCO of some old structure as a heritage structure. So that is one cultural part. There are a number of other activities which are being carried out by this particular organization. The UNESCO Bioethics Program was created in 1993. It belongs to UNESCO's Ethics of Science and Technology Program. The first success, its first major success occurred in 1997 when the General Conference adopted the Universal Declaration on the Human Genome and Human Rights, the only international instrument in the field of bioethics. And nearly all the countries of the world are signatories for this particular declaration. We are also the part of that. Due to progress in life sciences, stem cell research, genetic testing, cloning, these various techniques have given us new power to improve our health and control the development process of all living species. And so the importance of bioethics has increased very much within last 2 decades. This bioethics program is part of UNESCO's social and human science sector. The bioethics program of UNESCO has 4 main activities. The one, they are having the intellectual forum. The second, standard setting actions in the field of bioethics. The third, advisory role and capacity building. And the fourth is the education and awareness raising. Our bioethics unit is the part of this 4th activity. The main chair of UNESCO for bioethics is located at Jerusalem, Israel. And Professor Amnon Karmi, he is heading that particular chair. The sub-chair of Asia Pacific is at Melbourne, Australia, and headed by Dr. Russell D'Souza. Many of the faculty members are aware of this particular name. This particular chair started its activity in the year 2014 in India. As Dr. Kalidas Chauhan sir is in front of me, he might be remembering that since 2014 from MGMIHS, these activities have started to spread in Maharashtra. The initial workshop was taken at MGMIHS. Then later on, the number of units were set at various medical colleges. The unit of MGMIHS has been established on 10th August 2016 in the tenure of former Vice Chancellor Dr. Sudhir Kadam sir. The activities of these units are for faculty as well as for students. Now, in these units, this is not only for medical college, it is for all medical, even dental, allied branches like nursing, physiotherapy. These are included in the activities of units. Because all our professions are having the ethical values, ethical issues that we have to face if we are not aware of those particular issues. For the spread of the message of various ethical principles to be observed and inculcated, 3T program has been developed by this Asia Pacific division and which has been conducted in various medical colleges of the country. And happy to say that this particularly 3T program has been conducted at our both units, MGM Medical College Navi Mumbai as well as MGM Medical College Aurangabad, and our faculty has been trained in this 3T program. During 2015, in the meeting of the head of the units of bioethics from all medical colleges throughout the world at Naples, Italy, Fortunately, I was also one of the head of the bioethics unit, and I also attended that meeting. Decision of celebrating World Bioethics Day has been taken. It has been decided to celebrate this day on 19th October. How this 19th October has been selected the day for celebrating the World Bioethics Day? So there is also one reason for that. As such, UNESCO has adopted Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights on 19th October 2005. And so this particular day has been selected to celebrate as World Bioethics Day. It has also been decided to give theme for each year's celebrations. Just like WHO Day, what we celebrate on 7th April, on similar line, for the World Bioethics Day, the theme is also given and the activities are being conducted in relation with the theme. Today, due to this COVID-19 pandemic, most of the activities are restricted to the webinars and similar online activities are being used. But there are a number of other activities that can be performed on this particular day. Human dignity and human rights is one of the important themes of this particular year. I will just mention the themes for the previous year so you will get idea about what exactly the various activities the UNESCO Bioethics program is conducting. The theme of 2017 is equality, justice and equity. Theme of 2018, solidarity and cooperation. Theme of 2019, respect for cultural diversity. Now, what are the aims of this World Bioethics Day celebrations or the project? Is to foster bioethics principles as adopted by UNESCO in Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights through strengthening the importance of upholding bioethical principles in scientific research and innovations, creating awareness among various stakeholders, including healthcare providers, as well as beneficiaries of the same, encouraging discussions and debates related to bioethical issues in various dimensions of healthcare and related specialties, promoting students' participation and awareness through various interesting competitive centers at university level, national level, international level. I am aware that 2 years before, one of our students have won the prize at national level in such competition. So again, I give best wishes on the occasion of World Bioethics Day, and we will get idea from the eminent speakers about the various ethical issues that are to be considered in the field of bioethics, particularly by the health professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Dalvi sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, has explained the details about how UNESCO is working, how UNESCO is placed, and how this 19th October came because of a declaration of the human rights on 2005, 19th October. So this day has come. He has also explained about the various themes of the past and also made a particular mention that our student, one of our students last 2 years before, won a prize in these competitions. Thank you, sir. Thank you for encouragement and guidance. Now we go on to next speaker. We have Dr. Gauri Bapat, who is a nodal officer Aurangabad. She is heading the unit and she is steering the activities there. She is an associate professor of obstetric gynecology and we are going to commence with Introduction to the World Bioethics Day 2020, and the theme which is there and the relevant information about it. Dr. Bapat madam will dwell on this. Please, madam.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Am I audible and visible, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good morning to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Darvi, sir, for giving me this opportunity to be here with all of you and for heading this bioethic unit of Aurangabad campus. Sir has already briefed many of the things regarding this Bioethics Day, but I will like to just add on and repeat few of the things so that the things become very perfect in the viewers' minds. A very good morning with this thought of being human. Ethics is the quality of a human being. And this, give your hands to serve and give your hearts to love. That is a basic human character.
You are sharing the screen?
Yes, sir. Is it not visible?
Please go up and share screen.
Okay,
Click
fine.
on that.
Just a minute, sir.
Yeah.
Please, just a minute, sir.
Yeah.
That IT persons are.
Yeah. No. You go to, you scroll this pointer to the top, then the pop-up will come down, and at the top, yeah, or at the bottom there is a share screen. Bottom.
Both of the things are not visible. Okay, just a minute, sir.
At the bottom of the screen, there would be a pop-up in which there is a green indicator, share screen.
Yeah, just a minute, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, it will be fine.
Right.
Just
right.
Is it visible, sir, now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So today we are celebrating the World Bioethics Day. As Darvi sir has said, we are celebrating it since 2016 every year. But because of this COVID pandemic this year, the activities will be restricted only to webinars and just transferring and exchanging the information regarding the Bioethics Day. So being human is the basic crux of the ethics. It is a quality of a human being. And to give hands to serve and hearts to love. That is the spirit of being human, which is then carried out through all the ethical and the moral principles. Now, once we go back to the history, it is said that history is who we are and why we are the way we are. So history is not just the past. History is the present. So we need to know about the history of bioethics, the medical ethics, and ethics in general before we move on to see how we are celebrating this day fruitfully and for the betterment of the human race. This great man, Hippocrates, he has said this thing: make a habit of two things, to help or not, if at least do no harm. This great lady, the Florence Nightingale, she also has the same view, and she shared that the very first requirement in a hospital is that it should do the sick no harm. So this is the Hippocratic Oath. We all the medical professionals are following. And this is the nursing pledge, which all the nursing society of the world is following. So both these great men and women, she has said that we should not do any harm to the sick. We should help, benefit, but no harm. The history of medical ethics goes back to 3000 BC. And our own Ayurvedas and the Charak Sahita going back to 600 BCs, we have been in the field of medical ethics. But two important landmarks after this ancient medical ethic history are this Nuremberg Code of Ethics, which was established in 1947 at the end of the World War, and the World Medical Association's Helsinki Declarations. These two are the main landmarks in the history of modern ethics, which we are following nowadays. Just to mention that about the Nuremberg Code, it was established at the end of the Second World War. And this code has given 10 standard guiding principles depend on the permissible medical experiments. And it is based on only two principles, that is beneficence and non-maleficence. And most important, it has given stress on the voluntary informed consent for these human experimentations. And later came this Declaration of Helsinki. In 1964, the World Medical Association has given us the Code of Medical Research. And everybody who is doing research must be knowing that before we start our research, we have to take permission from a committee called the Ethics Committee of the university. So this Ethics Committee approvals started from this Declaration of Helsinki. These are also given us the guidelines for conducting the clinical trials. So how to conduct the clinical trials and what is to be done and what is not to be done in these clinical trials was the history. Now coming to the basics of ethics. What do you mean by ethics? Ethics comes from the Greek word ethos, which means the characteristic spirit of a culture, an era, or a community as manifested in its attitudes and aspirations. So it's, as Nirandar said, it is individual, it is of a culture, and it is of a community. So everything related with all these three aspects, they are going to formulate what is called as ethics. It usually depends on what is right and wrong. Now the terminology and the meanings of right and wrong may be different, but the right thing for a certain community may not be right thing for the others. So there is always a dilemma in the ethical principles. The ethics is governed by professional and legal guidelines. So just to nullify these dilemmas, there are always some guidelines which are made for certain professions so that the cultural and the community level disturbances will not be there. The ethics is universal and it is very, very necessary for survival of a society. So for human society to survive, the ethical guidelines are must. These are just dimensions to mention about where we are coming, mainly practicing this unit called as bioethics. It is a branch of applied ethics. What are the constituents of bioethics? The bioethics consists of clinical ethics, research ethics, resource allocation ethics, public health ethics, nursing ethics, and so many others. So the clinical ethics and the research ethics, they are very much our own, plus the public health ethics, it has to be our own because we are part of this society, plus we are doctors. And the nursing ethics, of course, because the nurses community is a very, very major part of the medical professional group. Now, what is exactly bioethics? Bio means life. And ethics means moral principles in respect to man's character or personality. So bioethics is a branch which deals with moral issues raised by development in biological sciences. The world is going ahead, marching ahead with so many new developments in the biological science. But every new development has to have some moral background so that we may not miss the path of the success and the betterment of human race. Bioethics is a discipline dealing with ethical implications of biological research. Okay, so all the researches, they should have some guidelines and the disciplines and the ethical backgrounds so that they will be carried out in a right path. What is medical ethics? It is a branch of bioethics and it analyzes the practice of clinical medicine and its related scientific research. It is very, very important and guide for the physician's interactions with the society and the colleagues. And it is based on set of values that the professionals need and can refer in the cases of confusion and conflicts, which are a day-to-day part of our profession. So ethics is very, very important in our professional lives. Sir has already covered up with this, the hierarchical pattern of how the units all over the world are collectively working for the implementation of these ethical principles in the medical professions. I will just like to again highlight it because these are the things which we should not forget. So the repetition will make us more perfect in it, that all this work is going under a broad chair called as the UNESCO chair, and which in association with the University of Haifa, that is in Israel, they are specifically conducting this bioethics programs and established since 2001. And their main purpose is to coordinate and stimulate the international network of institutes for medical ethics training in developed as well as developing countries. And this was at the end of 2 or 3 research programs, which concluded that the professional or the curricular training of ethics in the medical profession is very, very essential, and it helps for the students when they start practicing in their professional careers. So that's why this was included as a part of the syllabus, and this chair helps to make the arrangements and the preparation of the syllabus for this education and also satisfy the requirements for all the medical schools. This is the logo of the bioethics chair. Okay, so this is to be all the students take this visual impression of this bioethics chair logo, because under this heading we are all working together. Now, why we are celebrating the days? We all are celebrating so many days the year over the years. Now, like this International Yoga Day. What is the purpose? To educate the society on issues of concern for the whole world. Happy Mother's Day. What is the purpose of this day? Is to celebrate and reinforce the achievements of humanity. There is this day, Travel to World Tourism Days, and this is mainly to mobilize the political will and resources to address the global problems. So in the similar way, we are also celebrating the World Bioethics Day. As Sir has said, we are celebrating it since 2016, and on every 19th October, we are celebrating this day with different themes for different years. And the only purpose of celebrating this day is to make the world aware of this challenging branch of science, which is having a very great impact on the future of human beings. Okay? So we all are here on this webinar just to have awareness about the bioethics. As Sir has already described, these were the themes for the last 5 years. And for all the 4 years, just excluding this year, this day was celebrated mainly with different competitions all over the world. on like role plays, the video films and whatnot. But this year, we only have to restrict ourselves to just getting aware about the knowledge. And hopefully next year, we will be in full bloom with celebrations of different programs. Now coming to the principles of medical ethics. This is the ABCDE of medical ethics. A is autonomy, B is beneficence, C is confidentiality, D means do not harm, that is non-maleficence, and E stands for equity and justice. Mrinal madam will be taking into detail all these principles. I will be restricting myself only to this year's Bioethics Day theme, that is benefit and harm. So what is beneficence? Beneficence is a value in which the provider takes actions or recommends courses that are in the patient's best interest. It doesn't mean that doing all these things in the patient's best interest, we can do this with force or threat, or we can manipulate the patients into making decisions against their values. For example, if a patient needs any surgery, which is in his best interest, then we just can't, and if he is not willing for it, by any force or threat, we cannot do the surgery. So that will not become the beneficence. So that best of interest things should be done without any force or without any threat. And there should not be any manipulations of the patients while the patient is making any decisions. Okay. Now this beneficence has got 3 dimensions. There are personal dimensions, situational dimensions, and cultural dimensions. What does it mean? It means a certain thing which is beneficial for one person may not be beneficial for the other. A thing which is benefited in certain situations may not be the same, giving the same benefit in other situations. And the cultural variations means some cultural groups may find that this being done in the patient's best interest is good for the patient, but the other cultures may refuse it. So the cultural diversities, the situational changes, and the personal opinions may be different, and which may affect the so-called this terminology which says that whatever we are doing, it should be in the patient's best interest. Only one thing is sure, that whatever benefit we are expecting out of all our actions, the benefit must be in the form of healing. So our aim is the healing of patients' discomforts, symptoms, and signs. So no other dimension of benefit is expected when we are saying it is beneficence. The second terminology which is used is non-maleficence, that is do not harm. Actually, this logo of ours, which we are accepted as a logo of medical profession, this logo itself is an indication of I'm not going into the detail, but it is an indication of a long story which is based on this principle of do not harm. Now, what harm is expected, that we are not going to do this harm, is that any harm which is done intentionally. So an obligation not to inflict any harm intentionally is the concept of non-maleficence. Now, for every intervention we are doing, it may be giving a medicine, it may be any investigation which is done, or any operative procedure we are doing. Always we have to weigh the potential benefits against the possible risks or the adverse effects. So the risks may be individual risks, they may be societal risks. And the benefit risk ratio, we always say this word very commonly, that we have to all think about and analyze the benefit risk ratio in every act we are doing. May it be an investigation, may it be about treatment, any intervention, any operative, any counseling, whatever it is. So benefit risk ratio has to be calculated. The calculation will involve the 4 steps. Before calculating the benefit risk ratio, we just have to understand what we are doing. Then we have to balance it. Once we have done this homework, then we have to communicate it to the patient. And only after the consenting is given by the patient, then only we can move ahead for that particular act. And then only we will be restricted to this principle of non-maleficence. Benefit and harm. Two simple dictionary words. Very, very simple to understand, but for medicine and healthcare, every intervention has got both. And so to balance all of them is the real challenge for every medical professional. So how to balance this benefit and harm? Now, if we consider the dilemmas in this benefit and harm, say these are the few examples. Early detection of disease. So we are saying that screening should be done, the diseases should be detected at the earliest, we should go and then we can reduce the overburdens. But always when we are doing all these things, there is a harm of overdiagnosis. Now, for example, we are doing the screening test for gestational diabetes. Okay, the levels are, we take as 140 mg/%. The moment we take the levels to 128 or below that, whatever are suggested by different researchers, the overdiagnosis of GDM will be there, and the harms, the financial, whatever are the harms because of this overdiagnosis, the psychological disturbances of the patient has to be tackled by all of us. When we see of relief of symptoms, we are doing some analgesics for the relief of symptoms. At the same time, they are going to have some side effects or adverse effects. So one way is benefiting it, and other side it is having some side effects. We are doing so many things to increase the longevity. The moment we are increasing the longevity of a human race, the person is likely to have more chances of diseases and infections. So everywhere there are dilemmas. When we are introducing new drugs, we are not very much sure about the effect of treatment. Now, take the latest example. We are using the remdesivir as an antiviral drug in the patients of COVID. We are not very much sure about what are the after effects of it. When we are using unconventional therapies, for example, some addictive drugs, if we have to use, then how to consider the benefit and risk? When you are using drugs for prophylaxis, it means the disease has not occurred, but we are giving some medicines to prevent it. Now, for example, statins. Statins we are using to prevent heart problems and strokes, but the statins at the same time, they have got side effects also. So whether to give the statins to a patient of 45 years of age and to a 90 years of age, again, there will be a dilemma of benefit and risk. Now, for example, some of the things which we are practicing, we don't have any ethical basis for interventions. For example, contraceptive surgeries, benefit and harm, there are question marks. Cosmetic surgeries, there is a very big question mark, whether to go for that and what benefit and harm considerations we are going to do. Now, with all these things, how to practice? How can we go ahead with this principle practicing in our day-to-day practice? Only thing which we have to do is understanding the patient's perspective. So when we are considering benefit, simultaneously we have to consider patient's perspective also. We have to address their misunderstandings and their concerns. Try to pursue the patient, negotiate with them the acceptable and a very, very important word, that is evidence-based care plan. So unless and until we have got the evidence-based care plans, we cannot go for the practice of beneficence. And then ultimately, yes, sir?
I will conclude.
Yeah, just 2 slides more, sir. It's already last slides. So the practice will depend upon these steps. So I just want to enumerate few of the challenging situations for this non-maleficence. Withholding and withdrawing life supports in brain patients. Extraordinarily or advanced technical machineries when we are using. Death with dignity, for example, in critically ill and comatose patients who are in the vegetative states. Revealing the truth of diagnosis of life-threatening diseases to the patients. Everywhere we are in dilemmas. Now, only guiding principle for us in all these situations will be our intention. If our intention is powerful, then the acts will be always according to the principles. And here is our great father of nation who is with us all the time in the Mahatma Gandhi Institute. And he has told us that strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is your strength. And we are here throughout the COVID-19 pandemic with his blessings and his principles working, and very, very important benefit versus harm considerations and the steps we have already crossed through, like triaging of the health facilities, use of newer drugs, trial error combinations, elective surgeries being postponed, vaccine trials going on. Everywhere there are ethical dilemmas of benefit and harm. So just I would like to conclude, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. So hopefully celebration of this Bioethics Day awakens all of us, and we work and stick to all the principles of bioethics in our day-to-day life. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam. Madam has elaborated on beneficence and non-maleficence with a number of examples related to health professions. And in the end, she said about that you have to awaken from the heart. So with this message, we are very thankful to you, Madam, deliberating on this theme. Now we invite Registrar of Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, Dr. Kalidas Chavan, who is a professor of forensic medicine, who is an expert. And we always wonder that being in the chair of registrar, still he got time for his academics, that he has written books, and one book was published on 5th of September with Beyond Medicine. So with these words, we request you, and Dr. Chavan will speak on the medical and legal aspects, ethical aspects of consent in health profession. Chavan, sir.
Very good morning to all of you. First of all, I am thankful to Honorable Dr. Darvi sir for giving me an opportunity to invite for this webinar. I am thankful to Dr. Namdas sir, Dr. Bapat madam, and all other organizers for giving me an opportunity to participate in this workshop, especially on World Bioethics Day. Earlier, initially at the beginning, in the introduction, Dr. Namdas sir especially mentioned about the morals that we are supposed to follow, laws that they are for the common persons, and ethics for the professionals. So ethics are only for professionals. These are professional means not only medical professional. Ethics are for all professionals, medical professional, law professional, engineering professional, all professionals. So basically, the Namdas sir has categorized this all regarding the code of conduct into three categories, that is moral, ethical, and legal. In the first lecture, Bapat madam especially in detail mentioned about the ethics, A to E for ethics, A for autonomy, B for beneficence, C for confidentiality, D for and E, that all this A to E that specifically mentioned. And all this aspect Darvi sir especially mentioned the importance of the Bioethics Day, why we are celebrating Bioethics Day. Generally, the medical profession is governed by the ethics or moral principles or the code of conduct laid by the respective council, and all us or all the society abide by the various laws that they are laid down by the state government as well as the central governments. So everyone, every professional has both aspects, as a common person as well as the profession. As a profession, he is abide by all professional rules and regulations, and as a common person, he's abide by all the laws that laid down by the state government and the central government. Generally, there are certain situations where there are no guidelines, there are no laws. In that circumstances, how to deal that situation, that is the most important thing. And just 2-3 minutes before, Bapat Madam basically mentioned that dilemma during the professional practice. So that is the basic dilemma, is important aspect as far as the medical profession is concerned. What is right and what is wrong, and that is laid down as far as the medical profession and that code of conduct is concerned. But generally, the topic today allotted to me is especially about the consent. Actually, we wrote the book on consent. We wrote the book on Beyond Medicine, and the purpose of this writing the book about the consent. When I was working at the Power Institute, Loni, and Davi sir was Vice Chancellor at that time, there are many. I have organized many conferences across the state, and every time there is a phone call or there is a call that what about consent? If you see the structure of the consent across the state, or even in the same city, there is different format, different content, everything is different. And then we have conducted a survey about 100 hospitals, the consent form.
Are you sharing the screen?
Yes, sir. I will share, sir. I will share.
Okay, fine.
Then we conducted a survey, and at that time, I came to note that there is a lot of difference about the content and procedures, what is followed as far as the consent is concerned. Then we decided to write some booklet or book that will be useful for all the medical professionals. Then when I searched about various things that they are concerned with the consent, so initially I searched in the legal sense. So there is no legal definition as far as the consent is concerned. Then what is consent? Then I started working on it, and we wrote the book. And I think that book is near about not less than 1 year, more than 34,000 copies of the book are sold across the country. And most of the queries that we got about this consent is regarding the elements and procedures are supposed to be followed. Now I will share the screen and I will give my presentation. So, definition of consent. What do I consent? So, as I said that there is no legal definition of consent. As far as law is concerned, there is no specifically defined what is the consent, what are the elements of content, or what does it. So, generally, consent denotes voluntary agreement, permission, or compliance. That is the common consent that are derived by the practitioners or the professionals. Then, Section 13 of the Indian Contract Act mentions that two or more persons are said to consent when they agree upon the same thing in the same sense. So that is not again about the consent, but there is a specially mentioned in the Indian Contract Act that two or more persons are said to consent. Two or more persons are said to consent when they agree upon the same thing in the same sense. And Section IPC, generally IPC, Indian Penal Code defines the offense and prescribes the punishment. That is our legal system is based upon the IPC, CRPC, and Indian Evidence Act. IPC defines the offense and prescribes the punishment, whereas the CRPC, that is for the procedure for registering crimes, and IEA, Indian Evidence Act, that is for the evidence. So in Section 90 of the IPC defines consent in negative terms. If it is given, if consent given under fear of injury, then it is invalid consent. If consent given under misconception, then it is invalid consent. If consent given under intoxication by intoxicated person, then it is invalid consent. If consent given by the person who is unsound mind, then consent is illegal or invalid consent. Or consent given by the children whose age is less than 12 years, then consent is invalid consent. So that is about the consent. Though there is no, basically what I want to mention here that there is no legal definition of consent. Only by a professional, they have defined that consent denotes voluntary agreement, permissions, or compliance. Whereas Section 13 of Indian Contract Act mentioned two or more persons are said to consent when they agree upon the same thing in the same sense. And Section 90 IPC defines in the negative terms that when consent is invalid consent. Then what are the elements of the consent? So elements, what are the constituents of the consent? So first, that is voluntariness. Person who is participating or who is giving consent, the person should give in a voluntary way or voluntary manners. Second, that is capacity. Person have a capacity to give the consent. That is the mental ability of the particular person to give the consent. Then knowledge. The person must have knowledge for what purpose or what types, why he is giving the consent. That knowledge is one of the important elements of the consent. And last, that is decision making. Decision making means the person must have ability to take the decision. What is the right and what is the wrong? As generally, as Papa mentioned that in ethics. So what is the right and what is wrong? So these are the four important elements of the consent. Consent, that is voluntariness means free, capacity means person has ability, knowledge means person must have knowledge about for what purpose the consent is giving, and decision making means the person must have ability to give the decision as far as the consent is concerned. Then what are the types of consent? Generally, there are two types of consent, that is implied consent and other is the express consent. So what is implied consent? Implied consent, and second is express consent. Express consent may be either oral or written. Implied consent means the behavior of the patient implies that patient has given consent for the examinations or for the treatment. Implied means behavior, attitude, manner of the person itself mention that patient has given consent for the examination. But implied consent covers only history taking, inspection, palpation, auscultation, percussion. Implied consent does not cover examination of the private parts, manufacture or injection. It means that implied consent is limited only for history taking, inspection, palpation, or auscultation or percussion. These are the generally when patient enters in the doctor's room and the person sits in front of the doctors and it gives history, just implies the patient has given consent, implied consent. But that is not for any procedures. That will not cover any procedure prescribed by the medical practitioner, just like examination of private parts, manufacture, injection, or any procedures. I will mention few court cases where what the court has held about the implied consent. In Arun Balkrishna Iyer and other versus Sony Hospital and others, the Madras High Court held that consent is implicit in case of patient who submit to the doctor. To submit means just visit to the doctor. That is the consent is implicit. Second case, Dr. T.T. Thomas versus Smriti Eliza and others, Kerala High Court held that consent is implicit in case of a patient who submit to the doctors and absence of consent must be made out by the person alleging it. If person has some allegation that the patient has not given consent for that, it is the duty of the patient to prove that he has not given consent for the examination. The Parvat Kumar Mukherjee versus Ruby General Hospital and others, National Commission held that consent is implicit in case of patient who submit to the doctor and absence of consent must be made out by the person alleging it. It is again here, it is the duty, it is responsibility of the patient to prove that he has not given consent for the examination. That is about the implied consent. Second is the express consent. Express consent, that is again classified into two, that is oral and written. The term stated in explicit and distinct manner. Whether this consent is applicable for the surgical procedures or any procedures that is beyond the examinations, that is history taking, auscultation, inspection, percussions. So again, there is one case, that is Pillai versus S. Sharma, the NCDRC, the printed forms which do not reveal any information about surgical and anesthesia procedure and where the signature of the patient relatives are taken in a mechanical fashion on some of these forms much in advance of the date scheduled for surgery cannot be considered by any strange for imaginations as an informed consent. So express consent means either oral or written. So what is the difference between the oral express consent and written consent? Both are valid. Oral as well as written, both are valid. But as far as the oral consent is concerned, we don't have any proof with us to prove if there are allegations about the consent not being taken. So ideally, express written consent is more important, valid, and that we can say that is the informed written consent. So consent often must be informed consent. So that is the express consent. That is informed consent means that is express consent, and what information that you are supposed to be mentioned in the informed consent. The first, that is information about the diagnosis. That is the most important thing that are supposed to be included in the consent. The first, the 4 element, and second, that is what information that you are supposed to be included in the consent, informed consent. That the first is information about the diagnosis. That is very, very important. Second, information about treatment procedure and its likely outcome. So information about diagnosis means, as far as we generally mention that medical science is inexact science, and we are not always true that once the patient diagnosed, that is confirmed diagnosis, that may also complicate it within few days, few hours. So, but ideally, whatever you have diagnosed and what treatment you are likely to supposed to give, that diagnosis you are supposed to be specifically mentioned. Information about the treatment procedures, what type of treatment and its likely outcome, that is also supposed to disclose to the patient. Information about the alternative line of treatment. So initially that treatment, that is a medical treatment, surgical treatment, whatever treatment that we have to explain to the patient, then its likely outcome that of the treatment, and information about the alternative line of treatment. So whatever treatment is there, so which treatment is beneficial. Information about the risk of procedures, that also we are supposed to discuss to the patient, and information about the risk of refusal. So we are informed the patient about diagnosis, we are informed patient about the treatment procedure and its likely outcome. Information about alternative line of treatment also we are given to the patient. Information about risk of procedure also we are given to the patient, and information about the risk of refusal. After informing everything, if patient refuses to take the treatment, and there are chances that patient may go in a complication suddenly, and or some complication may occur. In that circumstances, you have to inform the patient about the risk of refusal. If you have laid down, you have planned some treatment for the treatment of the patient, and after that patient refuses to take that particular treatment, then inform the refusal. That also we are supposed to mention in that document. That is very, very important as far as the defense in case of allegations of medical negligence on the part of medical professionals. So these are the 4 important components of the informed consent form. Then voluntary participation, that is that what we have mentioned in the elements of the consent, that is a voluntary participation of the patient for the treatment. Confidentiality of the record, that is the duty of the medical practitioner. Use of data for research purpose, free treatment for the research related injury, compensation in case of death or disability, freedom to withdraw at any time. So all these informations that we are supposed to be disclosed to the patient in case of the informed consent. So informed consent process. So generally, what is the person, the form that who should sign that I will agree with them. Is informed consent always necessary? Why informed consent is important? To examine, treat, or operate upon patient without consent is regarded as an assault in law. Section 351 of IPC defines that treating patient without consent, that is an offense, that is a criminal act, as far as the section 351 IPC is concerned. So the consent is very important as far as the treatment of the patient is concerned. Second aspect, not taking consent is considered as a deficiency in medical service under section 3 of the Consumer Protection Act. So for both sense, legal means one, that is as far as the IPC, Indian Penal Code is concerned, examination of patient without consent, that is an offense or assault under section 351, and under section 3 of the Consumer Protection Act, that is considered deficiency in the medical service treating the patient. Here, as far as the 351 is concerned, patient has a remedy to file a criminal case against medical professional in any police station or in the court. And under section 3 of the Consumer Protection Act, patient can file a petition before the consumer forum. So consent is important, not for the patient. Consent is important mostly for the medical professionals because of 351 IPC and under section 3 of the Consumer Protection Act. What are the exceptions for the consent? So as I mentioned that consent is compulsory, but what are the exceptions for the consent? That is first is section that is emergency. During emergency, doctor or medical professional can treat the patient without consent. Without consent, that is an exception. As per section 53(1) of CRPC, when the patient or person is accused of any criminal offense, their examination of the accused patient is beneficial in the interest of the state for the benefit of the society. There we can examine the patient without consent. That is section 53(1) CRPC. That is examination of accused of sexual offense. Examination, that is the section 53. There we can examine the patient without the consent of the patient. Or prisoner, if there is a need to examine the prisoner, there we can examine the patient without the consent of the patient. Vaccination. Vaccination is a national policy. There we can give vaccine without the consent of the patient because it is for the interest of the society. And therapeutic privilege, that is also where the giving information of the patient that will save the protect of the society or community. There we can examine the patient without consent. That these are the exception for the patient. Earlier we have mentioned that importance or why consent is necessary. So what about consent in emergency? Justice Oza in Paramanand Katara versus Union of India and others, specifically the court has mentioned that duty to attend the patient without waiting for consent in emergency. Here, because there are a lot of dispute about the consent or in the consumer court that so consent has not taken. So in even consumer court, that is a good defense for the medical professionals that whatever treatment is given, so that will not considered as a negligence on the part of the medical professional. Section 88 to 92 of IPC try to shield a doctor from litigation suit arising out of any adverse outcome, including death of the patient in course of medical practice. So all sections, section 88, 89, 19, 91, 88, 82, 83, 84, and 92. These are deal with the practice and consent. So these IPC that will protect the doctors if any case or any litigation or allegation on the part of the medical practitioner. So what it means that if medical professional deal without any malafide intention, as Madam mentioned that for the benefit, autonomy, beneficence, not to cause the harm to the patient. Beneficence means not to cause any harm to the patient with the good intentions. Then that will not consider as that is a negligence on the part of the medical practitioner. So IPC, as I mentioned that IPC defines the offense and prescribes the punishment. As per this IPC, so these are the good defense for the medical practitioner in case of allegation of the medical negligence. In emergency, when should consent be taken? In emergency, doctor before specific procedures. In emergency, we are not supposed to take the treatment consent. But after once the patient will settle we came out of that emergency, then we have to take that consent for the specific procedures. Elective procedure preferably take a consent be at least a day or before the so consent should be time specific. What I want to say here, consent should be time specific. Suppose if you have taken the consent for surgery, that you have scheduled surgery 2-3 days after taking the or you have fixed the date for the that specific date for the surgery. So we have to mention that date means that on 1st of January we are supposed to do the particular surgery at 11 to whatever time. So consent should be time specific. So if you have decided that to operate on specific time and date on 1st of January, suppose on 1st of January, we are supposed to do the procedure on the first that on the specific date 1st of January. So if because of any reason or any delay, if there is a delay, again we have to inform to the patient that date is scheduled. So consent must be time specific. If you not follow the time, it amounts to be invalid consent. So consent must be time specific. So when you have decided that particular decision at so and so time, that time we are supposed to conduct that procedures. If we are not doing, then consent become invalid. Suppose because of some reasons, we are shifting that or changing the date of procedure, then we have to be inform the patient, and that information also to be included in that consent forms. Who should obtain the consent? So consent must be person specific. Person specific means specific person, the person who is supposed to operate, he only has to take the consent. Generally, the procedure, resident doctors are taking consent, and some senior surgeon is operating, so that also become invalid consent. And in many cases, court have given judgment that that consent should be taken by the specific doctor. Treating doctor should take the consent. Means concern is a person, time specific. Second is concern is a person specific.
So, sir, can we
consent?
Summarize. Consent
should be signed by the doctor, patient, and all parties, and including witness. So, witness, the consent signature of the witness is also necessary as far as the signature of the on the that particular form is concerned. What is the role of witness in the consent? Consent for witness, if, as I mentioned, that two parties agree on the same thing and same sense, but someone should witness that particular agreement. That's why there is a need of consent. There is need of witness as far as the consent is concerned. Consent without witness is also invalid consent. So witness is very, very important, and not only the signature of witness is very important as far as the consent form is concerned.
Sir, we request.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Consent, can consent be for diagnosis? So consent should be procedure specific. Suppose if you have obtained consent for specific procedure, we cannot operate, we can go beyond that procedure. So that also amount to be illegal on the part of the medical practitioner. So consent must be person specific, time specific, procedure specific, and consent should be witnessed by some third party. Then only it becomes a valid consent. So these are the specificity of the consent: person specific, time specific, procedure specific, and it should be witnessed by some persons. So that is some court orders. These things are important as far as the to valid consent. If these things are not there, then consent become an invalid consent. So consent should be full, free, voluntary, clear, informed, direct, and personal. If these things are there, then only we can say that that consent is a valid consent. If these things are not there, then consent become invalid. And consent's importance is only for the medical professional. It's only for the medical professional as compared to the patient. Patient also has importance, because consent is not to cause the damage, as we have mentioned in ethics, not to cause the harm, but that is a good defense for the medical professional in case of allegation of the medical professional. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I know it is difficult to put so much of a knowledge in a nutshell in such a short time. But sir has made it very lucid with various aspects of consent. Especially, he has shown the various court cases. I mean, people are generally scared of apprehensive the court and postmortems. But he is dealing with that department, and he has written the books and he has explained it. Thank you so much, sir. And now we move on to the next speaker, Dr. Mrunal Pimparkar, who will be speaking on principles of bioethics and ethical dilemmas in healthcare. Madam is a nodal officer and a secretary of the bioethics unit. I request you to start with your talk.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Inamdar, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And I would be speaking on principles of bioethics and the ethical dilemmas in healthcare. So all this while we have been speaking about the ethics and bioethics. So this is surely not something which is new. And this was being followed right from the Ayurvedic period of Charaka. So where we know that Ayurveda is the ancient science of life, and Charaka has described the objective of medicine as preservation of good health and combating disease. So now we have the MCI, who tells us about the code of ethics. But believe me, in those ancient days, it was the Charak Samhita who prescribed the elaborate code of conduct. So which are the challenging ethical issues? We all are doctors and medical professionals and healthcare professionals rather, and we face a lot of ethical dilemmas in our day-to-day practice. So let us quickly see which are all the various challenging ethical issues for which we require ethical consultation. So if we see the major challenging ethical issues comes, in issues like organ transplantation, euthanasia or mercy killing, Then prenatal diagnosis of sex, which has resulted in female feticide. When it comes to a communicable disease like HIV/AIDS, interacting with the HIV positive patient, we come up with a lot of ethical issues. Then strike by doctors. Even if it's a genuine reason for which the doctors have gone on strike, but still strike done by a doctor is considered unethical. Then accepting gifts from patients. It's considered unethical if a patient would want to give some gift to a doctor, okay, but still it is considered unethical. Advertising. It's like whether if I want to let the world know about my services, okay, or about my credentials, then how should I go about advertising it? So there are a lot of ethical aspects also involved in it. Coming to another challenges like withdrawing life-sustaining treatment. For example, if a patient is on the ventilator, how much time should the patient be kept on a ventilator? So when such kind of decisions are to be taken, it's not only medical legal, but also ethical issues which are involved. Achieving informed consent, ethical issues related to subject participation in medical research. If you're going to do a medical research on your patients, okay, or subjects, then again, you have to take care of a lot of ethical aspects which are involved. Then forced hysterectomy in mentally challenged women. Another ethical issues these days are when it comes to reproductive cloning. We all are excited about cloning. And there are many animals who have been successfully cloned. Basically, what is cloning is creating a genetically identical organism. And as I said, animals have been successfully cloned. And there are pioneers in human cloning. Okay, so they have the ability to clone humans. So someday we will have people, someone of us, we are also, you never know who would be cloned. So when it comes to human cloning also, there are a lot of ethical aspects, ethical issues involved, which requires ethical consultation. Another is, these days you have designer babies. Designer babies means now you select that your baby should have what kind of genes or traits. And you prepare those kind of embryos, and those embryos are transferred to the uterus. So you are kind of preparing a designer baby. So that way, in a sense, it's good because then you won't have a genetically abnormal child. Okay, you will be preventing genetic disorders. But then again, there are a lot of medical, legal, as well as ethical issues involved in it. Xenotransplantation. We are facing very severe, organ donor shortage. Okay, organ donation. There is a shortage of organs. So there have been things like, why not take out organs from animals and then transplant them into the humans. So that is called as xenotransplantation. And the best animal preferred is the pigs. But again, over here, when we are going for xenotransplantation, it is not only ethical issues, but also animal rights which are concerned. And there is always a risk of creating new human viruses. Apart from that, there are other ethical issues, like when it comes to inequality in access to healthcare or distribution of healthcare facilities. We know that we are in India, and India is purely a rural population. 74% of India's population lives in rural areas, and only 26% lives in urban areas. But when it comes to seeking healthcare facilities or health manpower, the specialists and all, you will find that most of them are there in urban areas. And people, they don't like to go and practice in rural areas. So actually, if you see, there is the 74%, which is the major population in India. They are deprived of the healthcare facilities and the health professionals. So these are also a lot of ethical aspects. So what is the answer for this? So no matter whatever ethical issues may be, your answer comes when you follow the principles of medical ethics. And as Dr. Gauri Bapat said, there are 4 principles of medical ethics: autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. Dr. Gauri Bapat has very nicely elaborated on 2 principles, that is beneficence and non-maleficence. So what are these principles? Autonomy simply means freedom of choice, which means that the patient deserves the right to choose or refuse the medical treatment. Beneficence means do good. Non-maleficence means do not cause harm. And justice means fairness and equality. So beneficence simply means do good, which Dr. Gauri Bapat has very nicely elaborated. It's our duty to promote the patient's welfare and to provide the patient with competent and timely health services. Non-maleficence simply means do not harm. Because of our activities, remember, the patient should not be harmed. We have to be that competent to provide good and timely services. And that's why it's very important that we should not be ignorant about anything, and we need to update or keep abreast of the recent knowledge, and we need to update our knowledge and skills regularly. We have to know our limitations, and accordingly, we should know when to refer our patient to other specialists. And also, if suppose we are the senior, we should know when to assign the patient to an assistant or a trainee. Justice. So justice is treat all the patients fairly and equally. Never have any indiscriminate attitude, okay, especially when it comes to don't give any differential treatment to the patients on the basis of their race or color, creed, gender, nationality, or religion. At the same time, if suppose any patient is having any communicable disease like HIV or HBV or HCV, do not give any differential treatment. You do follow your universal safety measures and precautions, but do not give differential treatment between the rich or poor or those who are HIV positive or negative. No. So that is justice. That is treat all your patients fairly and equally. And also when it comes to justice, there should be equitable allocation of healthcare resources. As I said, most of the health resources goes to the urban areas, and the poor rural and tribal areas of our country, they get deprived of these healthcare resources, which is simply not fair. Coming to autonomy, one very important principle of bioethics. So autonomy means what? It simply means that the patient has the right to refuse or choose a medical treatment. And we have to treat our patients based on the patient's desires, needs, abilities, and desires. We have to involve the patient in our treatment decisions. And it's equally important to safeguard the patient's privacy. It also means respecting the patient's privacy and confidentiality. And here comes the importance of informed consent, which Dr. K.D. Chavan sir has very nicely elaborated. It's also very important in autonomy that we have to provide sufficient information to the patient so that they can make informed choices. And we have to be very, very honest, that's truth-telling to the patients. So when you're thinking about the principle of respect for autonomy, we have to keep in mind these three questions. Okay, always keep these three questions in your mind. Okay, has the patient been informed of the benefits and risks? Has the patient clearly understood what you're going to do with the patient? Has the patient given informed consent? Very important is the patient mentally capable and legally competent? If the patient is mentally incapacitated, then who's the appropriate surrogate who will take decisions for that incapacitated patient? Of course, when it comes to leaving it to the patient to take a choice, there are certain restrictions. There are certain occasions or restrictions where, the patient doesn't have the right to exercise autonomy. So that means if suppose the person is suffering from some communicable disease and he's going to be a threat to others, like recently in COVID-19, we see that people are not able to exercise their autonomy. That means if a patient is asked to go in quarantine, he has to go in quarantine. So certain situations are there where patient will not be able to exercise autonomy, but more or less remember, autonomy is a very important principle of bioethics. So, ladies and gentlemen, to make this more interesting and elaborate, I would like to present some certain case studies. And I will, these are the cases which have actually gone in the court. And we can also see what the court has given the decisions. These are very important because from these case studies, we really will be able to understand the medico-legal and the ethical aspects. And in the chat box, okay, when I put a case, then I will ask you that whether this decision was correct or not. You may answer it in the chat box. So we start with the first case. So there was one patient ABC. Now, for maintaining the confidentiality, I have not disclosed the name of the patient, and these are real case scenarios, real life case scenarios. So for the sake of confidentiality, I'm not disclosing the name of the patient or the hospital. So that's why I'm putting it as patient ABC. So there was one patient ABC. She was diagnosed with a malignant liver angioma, and she was advised surgery. This patient agreed for the surgery, but on one condition, that whatever happens, she should not be given blood transfusion, because according to her, blood transfusion is prohibited in her religion. So the doctor or the hospital told her that it was actually impossible to perform surgery, such kind of a surgery on a liver cancer without a blood transfusion. And the doctor informed her, and so the patient left the hospital. She then went to another hospital, and this hospital doctors, they agreed to perform the surgery without giving blood transfusion. So she was very happy that this hospital is ready. So prior to the surgery, in fact, she signed a statement. She gave an informed consent and stating her refusal to receive blood transfusion and indicating that she will not hold the doctors or the hospital responsible for any damage arising from not providing a blood transfusion. But this hospital had a policy, and the hospital policy was that the hospital would respect the patient's request or intention to refuse blood transfusion, and that they would not transfuse blood under any circumstances. But in case of an event, if it occurs where the patient's life is in danger, then they would transfuse the blood irrespective of whether the patient or the family had approved such treatment. But this hospital policy was not explained to patient ABC, and she underwent the surgery. Now, during the operation, what happened was the patient bled a lot. So the doctors then thought that it is very important to save the life of the patient, and that's why they transfused blood, okay, to the patient during the surgery. Later on, which the patient came to know after the surgery that she was given blood transfusion, and she sued the doctor and the hospital. So, ladies and gentlemen, my question is, should the doctors have given patient ABC the blood transfusion during the surgery? And this case, what is this case? This case is about treatment without consent, that is imposed medical treatment despite patient's refusal. So you can just put in the chat box, yes or no. You may not give the reasons, they may not have that much of time, but you can just write yes or no. What do you think? Should the doctors have given patient ABC blood transfusion during the surgery? Now, many said no. Many people said no, that blood transfusion should not have been given to the patient. Why? Because it was patient's desire not to transfuse the blood no matter whatever happens. So by giving her transfusion, the doctors have violated her religious beliefs and her right to determine the course of her treatment. That is, they have not taken care of autonomy. Whereas there are others who said yes, the doctors were right. If the blood transfusion had not been given, then the patient would have died. And it is always a doctor's duty to save her life. So now, in balancing the patient's right to determine the course of treatment against the possibility of being saved by a blood transfusion, it is obvious that being alive is more beneficial for her. So friends, what do you think must have been the court's decision? It must have been in whose favor? The patient's favor or the hospital's favor? You can quickly put it in the chat box. So I will tell you now what is the court's decision. And as I said, that these are real life cases. The court decision, this case came before the Supreme Court of that particular country. As I said, to maintain the confidentiality, I'm not mentioning which country or which hospital, which doctor or name of the patient. So what did the court conclude? The court concluded that the patient had expressed the intention. The patient had already said that that no matter whatever happens, you should not transfuse blood to me because of my religious beliefs. And the doctors have failed to take into consideration the autonomy. And in fact, the court said that if it was the hospital policy was in place, it was not even explained to the patient prior to the surgery. So the doctors should be held responsible for having violated the patient's personal right in this respect, and therefore liable to compensate patient for the mental distress she suffered during the said violation. So that's why the court's decision was in favor of the patient.
Requesting, madam.
Yes, sir.
We'll be summarizing.
2 minutes, 5 minutes. Sir. Case study 2. Now, Mr. Vijay this is another case. Mr. Vijay is a 39-year-old male who's mentally challenged since childhood. So his ability to learn is limited and his personality is quite infantile. And Vijay, who is a mentally challenged patient, his father used to take care of him. Now his father is 65 years old, and for the past 3 years, he's been undergoing dialysis for end-stage renal insufficiency. So to improve the quality of the father's life, the doctor suggested a kidney transplant, which would extend his life expectancy for 5 years at the most. So Vijay was tested and found to be 50% match for the father for kidney transplantation. So should a kidney donation from Vijay, who is a mentally challenged patient, to his father, okay, should the kidney be donated from Vijay to the father, okay, when you know that Vijay is incompetent to agree to such a donation? So what is this case? This is a case of transplantation, that is kidney donation by a mentally impaired patient. So if you feel yes or no, whatever, you can put in the chat box. So let us see what the arguments were. Many people said yes, that kidney should be transplanted from Vijay to the father, because any worsening in Vijay's father's death, after all, Vijay's father's health, because ultimately it is a father who is taking care of Vijay. So any worsening in Vijay's father's health would directly affect Vijay, as the father will no longer be able to take care of the son. So it is ultimately Vijay's benefit only that he is donating the kidney to the father. But there were many who said no, because kidney donation might harm Vijay, because there are always potential risk when it comes to an operation. And also the kidney transplant will extend the father's life for only 5 years. Therefore, the operation is not justified and another alternative should be considered. So what was the court's decision? The court concluded that the success of kidney transplant at the age of 65 cannot be predicted, and the father's life expectancy would have been extended for only 5 years. Also, Vijay does not have that capacity to give consent, and he would not even know, or he would not even be able to experience that what would happen if a kidney is removed from his body, because he is mentally impaired. So considering the balance between the benefits occurring to Vijay and the potential harm to him as a result of kidney donation, the conclusion is that kidney donation should be prohibited. So these are all various ethical dilemmas which we face in our practice. So what is the difference between an ethical issue and an ethical dilemma? An ethical issue is when you have to judge what is right or wrong. It is simply a situation and you will get the answer simply by adhering to the code of conduct. But what is an ethical dilemma? Is a confusion, that exists when two or more ethical principles or standards conflict with each other. So when you have multiple choices, remember that creates an ethical dilemma. We go to quickly case study 3, which is also very interesting. And these, as I said, these are real life cases which had gone in court. And this is also an interesting case. Dr. Inamdar sir, please give me 2 minutes. G and M, these are 1 month old conjoined twins. And each has their brain, heart, lungs, and all vital organs. Okay, but only thing is they were joined at the lower abdomen. And they are 1 month old conjoined twins. Now these twins can be separated, but the operation would kill the weaker twin, that is M. J is stronger, whereas M is a weaker twin. So if this operation was to be done, it would have killed the weaker twin M. M is alive only because of her sister J, who is stronger because she is able to pump the oxygenated blood for both of them. So if you're going to separate both of them, it would require clamping and then severing the common artery. So after separation, the weaker twin M will die. but it would give life to the stronger twin, that is J. And anyways, if suppose this operation doesn't take place, then both the twins would die within 3 to 6 months. Now the parents were not able to give the consent for this operation because from parent point of view, they thought that both my twins are equal to me and they cannot agree to kill one just to save the life of other. Whereas the doctors were convinced that they can carry out the operation because that will give the stronger twin J a worthwhile life. So should the hospital separate the twins with the knowledge that the operation will cause the weaker M's death? So what is this case? This is a case of selective treatment. So many said, yes, the hospital should perform the operation because if the twins are anyways not separated, both of them would have died in three months. But if the operation takes place, the stronger J will definitely enjoy a normal life. But there were others who said no, who thought that it is unethical to perform an operation when it is going to cause death of one patient. So it's not the hospital's right or authority to determine which life to be taken and which life to be preserved. So what was the court's decision? The court's decision was the court concluded that the operation would give the stronger twin J a relatively normal life, and refusing to separate the twins would have killed both of them. And the court said that the purpose of the operation was not to kill the weaker twin M, but it was to give J a reasonably good life. The operation would give her, bodily integrity as a human being. So it is impossible to satisfy the right of both the twins to live the lives which are possible for them. Thus, one of those rights have to be foregone, and thus choosing the forego separating the twins denies J's right. So separating them denies M's right. So it is therefore a question of deciding which right to be considered great. So clearly the court said that J stands to lose the more weighty right, and the decision to separate the twins can be properly justified. So case number 4. This is also an interesting case regarding HIV positive patient. Dr. Ajay, he was working as an assistant surgeon in a private hospital. And one day his friend met with an accident and his friend needed blood. So Dr. Ajay donated blood, wanted to donate the blood. So that's why Dr. Ajay's blood sample were taken and tested. And the result showed that Dr. Ajay is HIV positive. But at that time, Dr. Ajay was not knowing that he is HIV positive. 2 months later, Dr. Ajay proposed marriage to Miss Anita. And Miss Anita accepted the proposal. She was not knowing that Dr. Ajay is HIV positive, nor did Dr. Ajay tell her that he is HIV positive. And the wedding was scheduled for next 6 months later. However, when the hospital came to know that Dr. Ajay is going to get married in the next 6 months, the hospital informed Miss Anita's family that Dr. Ajay is HIV positive. And knowing this, the marriage was called off. So since the marriage was called off, Dr. Ajay's family, the entire community came to know of Dr. Ajay's HIV positive status. So Dr. Ajay was severely criticized, ostracized by the community, and forced to leave. So Dr. Ajay, he claimed damages against the hospital on the grounds that information according to medical ethical standards should have remained confidential had it been illegally disclosed, and therefore the hospital was liable for damages. So what do you think, friends? Should the hospital have informed Miss Anita's family that Dr. Ajay was HIV positive? So what is this case? This is a case of information, medical confidentiality, and its limitations. So should the hospital have informed Miss Anita's family that Dr. Ajay was HIV positive? So many of them said no. The hospital should not have informed because the hospital has a duty to maintain confidentiality, and disclosing that Dr. Ajay is HIV positive is a breach of trust. Whereas many felt that yes, confidentiality is definitely a basic obligation, but it is not an absolute obligation. It is very important to save the life of Miss Anita, and that's why it's important to tell her about Dr. Ajay's HIV status. So as Dr. Ajay had gone to court, so what was the court's decision? The court concluded that As I said, that doctor-patient relationship and maintaining confidentiality is important, but that is not an absolute obligation. Considering that Dr. Ajay was HIV positive, disclosing this information would not be in violation either of obligation to maintain confidentiality of Dr. Ajay's right to privacy, as this disclosure would have saved Miss Anita's life, whom he was about to get married. If the marriage would have taken place, then definitely Anita also would have been suffering from this dreadful disease. So that's why the decision went in favor of the hospital, that they did the right thing of informing Miss Anita. So last two cases, 2 minutes, Dr. Namdar, sir. So many such ethical issues will come up, friends. One more important ethical issue, especially when it comes to religious matters, that there was this case that in one particular religion, it was like, if a patient is dying, you should not tell the patient that the patient is dying. And the family always insists that don't tell the patient that he's going to die. Okay, so if you happen to see a case of a dying patient who comes from a culture in which it is considered wrong to tell the patient that the patient is dying, and the family requests you to hide the truth from the dying patient, what would you respond? Many of them, emotionally we feel कि वो patient मर रहा है तो उसे क्यों हम उसका prognosis बताएं, that he is going to die. But is it ethical? So remember one thing, friends, that diagnosis is the property of the patient. The patient has the right to know the diagnosis. He's the first person to know about the diagnosis. And withholding information can be bad because that would create a dishonesty between the patient and the medical caregivers. The last case, this is regarding research. We do a lot of medical research, and we involve the patients in medical research. Medical research is very important because then and then only you would come to know about the newer developments in your field. So there is one Dr. Dia, again name change for confidentiality, who's a general practitioner in a small rural town, and she was approached by a research organization to participate in a trial, okay, on a new drug, a new NACID for osteoarthritis. And obviously she was given a sum of money for each patient that she enrolls in the trial. And this research organization representative told Ms. Dia that the trial has received all the necessary approvals right from the ethics review committee. And this Dr. Dia had never participated in a trial before. So this time she was super excited, and especially with the extra money she received. And she accepted without inquiring anything about the scientific or ethical aspects of the trial. So friends, do you think that Dr. Dia is right? The answer is obviously no. It is absolutely unethical. Dr. Dia should not have accepted it so quickly. She should have first tried to know more about the project. She should have ensured that this project meets all the requirements for ethical research. And she should basically participate in the projects in her area of specialty. Okay? She should ensure that she acts in the best interest of her patients and enroll only those patients, okay, who are not going to get harmed by changing the current treatment to the experimental one or to a placebo. So I would like to conclude here by saying that what is your choice? You will have lots of choices, you will have lots of dilemma. But friends, remember this thing. Medicine is all about can we, but ethics is all about should we. And there is a difference between can we and should we. So to conclude, I'll say that we should all strive to be not just an experts in our field, but also ethical professionals and role models for our community. And we should create ethical professionals that our country, India, can be justifully proud of. And no patient or doctor should ever beat a doctor. So this is the references, the actual case scenarios which I have taken. As I said, that these are the real case scenarios which have gone in the court. So I have taken it from this book called as Casebook on Benefit and Harm. Okay, this is the reference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. So like all good things, we are coming to the end of this webinar. We started with Honorable Vice Chancellor's address regarding the information about the UNESCO, the themes and the activities that we carry on, followed by Dr. Gauri Bapat, who spoke on the World Bioethics Day theme and the various aspects of the theme, beneficence and non-maleficence, followed by Dr. Chauhan, who elaborated on consent various aspects with number of court cases supporting and guiding the students as to what should be done in which case, which was followed by Dr. Mrunal Pimparkar, who spoke on the principles of bioethics, the 4 cardinal tenets, and with number of case studies, very interesting ones. She explained whether it is a can be or a should be that a dilemma of ethics should be solved with. I'm very happy that every speaker has more to give to us than the time which could be contained for the content. There are the questions, but we are constrained by the time. One question that I'll put to Dr. Bapat in a brief half a minute, that day, what is this Nuremberg Code that has been asked by one of the students? Why the name and a bit half a minute. And then I will go to Dr. Chauhan sir for a half a minute question.
So this code was declared at the end of the Second World War, when the Nazi colonies and the prisoners, Nazi prisoners, were very badly and in an inhuman way. They were included in many of the drug trials and many of the new experimentations. And that was a very bad thing for the humanity all over the world. And that's why this, as soon as it was over, the whole of the world came together and they decided that this should not happen anymore with anybody in this world for the future. And that's why this code of ethics was formulated specifically for the human experimentations, where the inclusion of the human in the different experimental studies. And that was the code.
Thank you, madam. Dr. Chauhan sir, one question.
Yes.
That in earlier years, a number of things were taught in forensic medicine, in preventive social medicine, but now this new CBME has come. So regarding ATCOM module, what are your views about how it is structured and how it will be useful?
Actually, my book, Beyond Medicine, A to E for Medical Professional, that book is totally based on the 58 competencies that are included in the ATCOM module. That is A for attitude, B for behavior, C for communication, D for doctor-patient relationship, and E for ethics. As far as the ATCOM module is concerned, maximum scenario modules are on ethics only, ethics and few are on other aspects. But I included beyond that, that's why I titled it as a Beyond Medicine. And attitude, that is a critical analysis of attitude. Attitude is more important. As far as the attitude is concerned, basic objective of education, change in attitude of learner is known as teaching learning. So change in attitude of learner is more important. That's why I focus mostly on attitude, because ethics is there, doctor-patient relationship is there, negligence is there. But if you don't have attitude, then nothing will happen. So the most important thing, even I wrote to that time website also, there is need to focus more on the attitude, because if change in attitude is there, only we can get expected output. Otherwise,
thank you. Yes. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah. Dr. Mrunal Pimparkar, madam, when you spoke about the designer babies, I was reminded of an anecdote that there was a Bertrand Russell and Marilyn Monroe. So she said, "Ki we'll marry, so the baby would be beautiful as me and intelligent as you." And Russell said, "Ki if it happens other way, what will happen?" So my question to you is about cloning, human cloning. So
Yes, sir.
what are the views?
So personally, I feel that no, there should not be human cloning, because I feel that every individual is unique and we should not play with nature, because there are always limitations when we go against the nature. But you never know with medical science, at least in animals, it was successful, though we all know that later on that animal expired. So we can't say about the life expectancy also. So there are a lot of ethical issues and a lot of research which will be required in this.
Thank you. May I request Honorable VC sir to guide us with 2 lines as to bioethics, what should be done to increase the awareness, any kind of activities that we can take up. You are muted, sir. Unmute.
Regarding the last question that has been, we should not go against nature. Even the present COVID-19 pandemic also, this view has very much prevailed that we are, nature is capable of taking its own care. But if we start destroying nature, then the havoc will be created. In many incidences, this has been reported. So, saving of nature and not going off against it is very, very important. And that's all. Very nicely, all the speakers have expressed their views to the topic. So, again, the best wishes on the World Bioethics Day.
Thank you so much, sir. So we are coming to the end of this today's excellent program. We have a lot of responses on the YouTube. The students have also responded to various case studies which are there, and they have sent the responses. And so in the end, it's my pleasant duty to thank everyone. I thank the dignitaries, trustees and authorities of MGMIHS, Navi Mumbai and Aurangabad. I'm thankful to Honorable Chancellor Shri Kamal Kishore Kadamji, Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Shashank Dalvi sir, Honorable Medical Director Dr. Sudhir Kadam sir, Honorable Vice Chairperson Dr. PM Jadhav sir, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor Dr. Nitin Kadam sir, Registrar MGMIHS Dr. Rajesh Goel, Dean sir Dr. Narsetti sir and Dr. Bora sir, Medical Director Aurangabad Dr. Ajit Shroff sir, Deputy Registrar Dr. Rajesh Kadam. I am thankful to all the directors, principals, in charges of various constituent units of Navi Mumbai and Aurangabad in the streams of medical, nursing, physiotherapy, prosthetic and orthotics, and allied health sciences. I'm thankful to all the HODs, all the members of bioethics units, and especially the student wing. There is a student wing of bioethics, and these ones are very vibrant and very enthusiastic students. I'm thankful to all the faculty members and the members of university team which are working for all these webinars, IT team, especially Anil Khandare, and last and not the least, as the phrase goes, all the student participants, because without which neither a program can be successful nor the movement can be successful. And I'm sure that they will shoulder this bioethics activity under MGMIHS. So thank you all, and let's celebrate the World Bioethics Day 2020. Thank you. So we close here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Madhav.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, students.
Thank you all for participating. Thank you very much.